So, time has come in the sequence of this book to share my untold story of how I got an education. I was not an easy student. I was not a genius, but I was not like the other students either. I had my own philosophy about education from early childhood. I also had my own style of learning. I did a lot of experiments on how best we could learn. I asked a lot of questions. I always worked hard, but somehow I never was able to make the teachers happy by getting high marks. No students ever came to ask me tips on how to score high in exams. But somehow I think I made the best use of my education because even up to now, I am still involved with the things that I studied in school. I have been able to still make use of all the things that I studied, at least most of them, in my day to day life. I don't know if it was the desired objective of the education I had gotten, but I know that my approach to education enabled me to have a better, happier, more successful life than my contemporaries. The game isn't over yet, and it's not even halftime. There's still much more to go. But again, it's not about who's right and who's wrong. I just had my own style of learning. At that time, I had no idea about this concept of the four components of education that I've been talking about in this chapter. But looking back, I was able to use these four components throughout my studies. It is only in this year that I was able to give it a particular structure that I've explained to you so far. Before I move on to the different phases of my education to illustrate my story of education in more details so that you can understand the four components at play, I would like to mention about my philosophy, which I said was different in the paragraph. My philosophy was that I didn't want to score high marks. For me, the important thing was to understand thoroughly all the concepts and ideas that I was given. I wanted to excel in all those skills. Then I wanted to develop the capacity to use the knowledge I would have gained in various life situations at the time I studied and later on also. I wanted to be able to relate what I studied to the day to day activities or situations that I would be facing. And when I was so busy in fulfilling all those objectives, which you will be able to count as four, corresponding to the four components, I was unable, consequently, to score high marks because I was not able to spend enough time in memorizing and finding out what would come in the exams. Even in the exams, my approach was not a single one, but I wanted to explore various ways in which we could score higher marks. This means that sometimes I would write the answer in one way, and other times I would write in another way, just for the sake of finding out how each time the results would vary. Ultimately, I was not scared of how much I would get as long as I passed. I didn't care for getting a scholarship, which was the main benefit of scoring high marks. Then, certainly, I did not care about the status I would have gotten if I scored high among my peers. So, yes, my philosophy is complex and it has been so from an early age. So let me get into the story of my education. I don't remember particularly my early days, but I was told that I was sent to nursery when I was 4 years old. I don't remember studying in those days, that is in the 1970s. Education for toddlers must have been just to keep them in class. I was a bit naughty and I didn't like to go to school, I was told. My education um, of pre primary happened in Nepal itself. And then, as my father got work in Paris, I joined class 1 in France itself. Having reached Paris, I remember learning the French language. I don't actually remember learning the Nepali language because I don't think they taught it. I remember pronouncing the various letters of the alphabet. Up till class 5 in the school that I studied, there was no pressure and there was no exams. Still, somehow, I managed to learn grammar, at least the French one. I don't remember much about studying mathematics, but it seemed I could calculate. I recall reading books from an early age in class 2 and going in front to give a presentation about what I had read. I remember taking dictations from an early age. So in those days, I think that I was provided a lot of skills of language, which I still remember. Still, today I can at least sew the buttons that fall off my coat because they had taught that skill when I was in class 1. They taught the skill of playing the flute, but somehow it didn't transfer to knowledge because I had no natural talent for music. So all I knew was how to arrange my fingers so as to make the sounds on the symphony written on the paper. Then, when I reached class 6, it suddenly changed. Everything became serious. Exams were held. And it is at that time that I actually recall studying and doing homework. The first dictation that I was supposed to take was disastrous, and the teacher marked every single word and letter for which I had a mistake. I learned a lot in that year. I was told to ask questions in the class, which I did. The skill of reading and understanding grammar, spellings, helped me explore literature, which added to my knowledge about the world and French history. The mathematics were very basic in Paris for some reason, so I didn't feel any pressure in math. In science, we were taught in an earlier age to do experiments, and that cemented in me the knowledge base for science, coming up with a theory based on observation and experiments. The experiment that really still marks me is a simple one of planting a seed in a cup with cotton. So over the days, we could see the plant grow. And that was amazing. Then we had to dissect the flowers. At the same time, we were given the books to read and see the diagrams and read the explanations. And so it made total sense that what we read in theory had a practical usage. And that became a very strong foundation for me until the later years. In class 6, I understood the value of exams and I learned how to study for the exams. I joined class 7 in Nepal. Until class 10, I was in a boarding school called Burlington School, which was a government run school with British collaboration. There were a concept of multiple sets A, B, C in terms of student capacity for various subjects. So based on my entrance exam, I was put in the set C for math, science, and English because I was poor in all of them. Needless to say, my Nepali was absent and I had to learn from the alphabet. Somehow I had developed the skill to learn subjects from the ground up. I almost felt an intuitive feeling in me that guided me into the next step of learning. First, Nepali, it was clear that I had to learn the alphabet, so I learned it like I learned French in grade one. As soon as I could understand the letters and the words, I started reading thoroughly anything that I could get hold of in Nepali. Nobody told me that, by the way. And then I spent every day half an hour at least reading out loud to improve my articulation. I had a dictionary always by my side so that I could at least learn a dozen new words every day. And in this way, my knowledge of Nepali increased due to my skills of learning a language. I was able to use that skill in my day-to-day life to talk to people, to read signatures on shops and buses, so I could translate my skills to information. Also, I use the Nepali language to write my feelings in diaries, and that was the wisdom part. Eventually, starting from 0 out of 100, by the time I reached class 10, I scored around 65 out of 100, which is a very high score even for students who have been in Nepal from birth. In France, the English language was taught only once a week, but we were taught the skills to read out loud. We were taught that comma was to just take a short breath, and the full stop was to swallow your saliva, and the paragraph was to take a very long breath. The books that we were taught in English filled us with imagination. So I had a strong desire to master the English language. I practiced my skill of speaking with people and teachers, and also read out loud the newspapers in English. My grammar was equally poor, my spellings as bad, and so I used to make a diary of vocabularies. I developed techniques of all kinds to memorize new words and to put them in sentences. That is the wisdom part. I still remember learning about the word immaculate, and I put it in an essay saying that I am amazed at the immaculate beauty of the girl in front of me, and so on. There are still so much skills I had to master, which I would do after grade 10 in class 11 and 12 only. But the knowledge of the language allowed me to read more books, more history, geography. That became the base for me to make further readings. In class 8, I even won an essay competition in English. The first sentence was, "The sun set," and blah blah blah. This inspired me to be a writer. I still haven't become a full-fledged one, but that day will never be forgotten. Again, when I wrote that essay, I used my wisdom because the topic of the essay was tomorrow. The other people wrote the introduction and the technological advances that tomorrow would provide, the changes in society that could occur. But for me, I was inspired by the various novels I was reading at that time. And so I just write a fiction essay instead of a non-fiction essay. In the math subject, as I told you, I don't remember studying anything from class 1 to 5. But when I was in class 6, there was some geometry and algebra. And I didn't find it hard because the skills were quite obvious and they provided me with a logical thinking capacity. I knew that if something wasn't understood, the solution must be in the earlier pages or the earlier chapter. So I just investigated. I knew how to derive things. So with this basic knowledge of math, that is A is equal to B and B is equal to C, so A is equal to C also, I was able to navigate through the more complex math in Nepal. I became very good in arithmetic, algebra, geometry, trigonometry. It's just building on the simple skill of logical thinking. Some problems were very hard, and it just required to find a new logic based on the formulas that were provided. So I didn't find it impossible. In addition, while other students just read the question, I visualized each of the questions. So the question was measure the height of a tower using a trigonometric equation. Then I actually saw a tower and me myself standing in front of it and making that triangulation in my eyes. If the question was to calculate the number of workers required to do a certain job, if the number of workers was doubled, then I would just imagine myself in a factory and I would use the formula. So this skill of imagination helped me increase my wisdom when I used to go trekking or traveling. I used to tell myself, am I going in a parallel line from where I had come, or I've turned a 90-degree turn, and this type of geometric observation. So in this way, I improved the skills and at the same time worked on my wisdom. I was also in the drawing class, and we were taught how to draw the top view, the elevation, the side view of various buildings, objects, how to make three-dimensional diagrams. That fascinated me, and I used that skill whenever I was free with a piece of paper in nature, in the streets, in my room when I was bored. So my education was never just limited to the classroom and the exams. By the time I had reached class 10, the boy that had come from France who knew practically nothing, be it Nepali or English or math, reached to set A from set C in all of those subjects, and even science. In science, Paris had given me a strong base on connecting theory with practical directly. The course was so small that it was easy to spend time on that particular cup with the seed that we talked earlier, then make a drawing of the flower. So I use the same approach to understand the various courses in science. The teachers of science were also very good because they knew that science was linked to wisdom and information. For example, when the science teacher taught us about biology and the digestive system, he actually challenged us by asking us what causes the food to go down the alimentary canal. Is it gravity or is it peristalsis, which is the movement of the muscle? I still remember that word peristalsis because of how he made us understand through an experiment. It was a very funny one, and he did it himself after nobody took up his challenge. The experiment was, can anybody stand on their hands and eat? If gravity was the cause for the food to travel through the alimentary canal, then when we are standing upside down, we should not be able to digest food. However, if when we are upside down and the food goes to the stomach, then it's not about gravity, but it's about the internal mechanism called peristalsis that we had discussed. So that must be true. Nobody took the challenge, and he himself stood on his hands and he took an apple and just ate it. All the children looked at this crazy teacher, and the food actually went up his stomach. In this way, he was able to prove that peristalsis was true. So, when I was able to observe this as an information, I translated that into a skill that I would use later on in my own science studies, and the knowledge about how theory is made from an experiment. I became very proficient in science. Even till later years, it was a joy to see the science in everything. And so this was my school days. After grade 10, I did a short term course to complete my O levels, which was not mandatory, but I just wanted to spend my holidays productively. In that time, I again mastered further my English. This was possible because there were very few of us and it was like a private tuition. The teacher told us about the various stories. They gave us many books to study. More importantly, we were given essays to write, and the teacher again read word by word, paragraph by paragraph, and give the feedback, which helped me shape my own writing over time. So, whereas I was interested in writing early on, by the time I finished my O levels, I was really writing good essays. I knew the grammar, I knew how to write a plot of a story. Talking about the story, I had written a story and I had created several characters. By the end, I had myself forgotten most of them, and only a few of them were in the conclusion. But the teacher asked me what happened to the remaining other characters that you had mentioned in the beginning. I had no clue. Then she told me that in a story, there's expectation that you should close every character they create. Oh, I didn't know that, I thought. And that became the basis of my new knowledge. I translated this knowledge into a wisdom in that whenever I talk to somebody, I finish what I started and I make sure that I don't overwhelm the listener or the reader in anything that I cannot remember myself. Also, in the O levels, I studied a lot of biology, which really shaped my understanding of the human system. That increased my knowledge thoroughly, even though there was no experiment at that time. Because of the earlier school days skills that I had developed, I could imagine experiments and visualize everything that I studied as though I was conducting experiments. One of the most memorable subjects that I studied is geography. So there's not much skill required when you study geography except that of language, but the conceptual skills that is required is distinct. For example, when you have got to understand how the sun rises from the east and why there is day and night, you need to be able to draw the sun and have the earth tilting at a certain degree, rotating around in your mind. And that's a skill. You develop it first by drawing on a piece of paper, but later on you have to upgrade that skill into visual thinking because you cannot keep drawing everything. And that's what geography taught me. Strong visualization, because everything could be verified in the information of the world around us. Like we could visualize that rivers were formed by erosion. It made total sense because when water passed through a garden, there was erosion. So it could not be so difficult for water to create rivers and gorges, valleys, and so on. So geography was so exciting to understand everything, but more so because it enables us to develop the skill of strong visualization. That would be useful until now for the remaining decades in even other subjects also. I studied class 11 and 12 in a college called St. Xavier's, which was run by a missionary. There, I already had a strong base in all the subjects, so it was not so difficult for me. I learned the complexity in the same concepts of science. I realized that it was not much different, but a bit more complex with more details. So I saw the subjects, be it physics, chemistry, biology, as canvas with a mountain, for example. Then the more I went into grade 11 and 12, the more details I could put to that mountain, adding a house here and there, grass here and there, adding some shades, adding a river. So for me, I knew that I had gotten the basics, but now I had to understand the more details. I had understood Newton's laws, but from that, now I had to understand what was actually work, power, impulse, units, and so on. So my wisdom enabled me to take the hardness of the sciences very easily in a systematic step-by-step elevation. It was the same with mathematical theories. and calculus, etc. By now, you know how I use my wisdom to make it easy, and further added on more skills. Then that became a knowledge. Then I added more knowledge, more skills, so that I could understand the information more clearly. Then mixing it with more wisdom and all repeating the process again. In my bachelor's degree, the strong foundation I had developed by class 12 kept helping me. The course became so vast in terms of skills for mathematics and the sciences. It's like a story of a hero and heroine. At the beginning, it was a short one, but later on, it's like they are talking about his uncle, her parents, the number of bumps he had on his head, and so on. I knew that the various new theories that they were being teaching in the mathematics and sciences required for engineering would be used in the future, but somehow I developed disinterest in that subject because I wanted to get the core components in a different field, but I didn't know which one it was. However, I just made sure that I studied everything that was given to me without complaining. In the first year, it was a lot of mathematics. I understood that if I wanted to become a PhD in mathematics, then these are the things that I would have wanted to learn. I had to make a trade off. Will I acquire more skills and knowledge at the cost of other things in order to score high marks in the math subjects? Or will I just try to understand the knowledge without having a focus on the skills of math? It's a tough choice I had to make, but I'm not like my friends who were totally clueless about what to do in face with the difficult, complex math that they were given. I knew that I had made a trade-off by not further enhancing my skills and limiting my studies of mathematics to gaining the knowledge and the wisdom. I developed the wisdom that in the end, all those Fourier's equation theorem and big formulas were about to solve algebraic equations and relationships between various parameters. I learned the basic skills required to get a pass mark, and that's it. I was done with math, although I had wanted to pursue further mathematics. But again, as I told you, I had to make a trade off. In the second year, we were given new fields of studies like management, economics, finance, and even biology, microbiology. Whereas my friends depicted this syllabus saying that it was nothing to do with the mechanical engineering course that we're supposed to study. I rebelled because it just provided me with the knowledge that I was looking for, and this was the trade off that I was talking to you about. I wanted to have knowledge of more subjects rather than to specialize purely in mathematics or hydrodynamics or control systems and material sciences. I developed the various skills to understand non science subjects that I listed earlier, and this knowledge gave me the ability to use my scientific knowledge and skills in non-science subjects. This was the beginning of who I would become in the future. That is an eclectic writer and management consultant and counselor motivator. Towards the end of my engineering degree, it became very clear that I didn't seek a career in engineering. I didn't see myself making calculations to determine the radius of the beam that should support that bridge, or the composition of the various materials that should go in the gearbox that should be able to take the torque from the vehicle. Now, my life had to be about something else. The course in management opened my eyes to new possibilities. So at least I thought that I would become an operational manager overseeing a factory. I had learned the skills to optimize a process, that is, making measurements of the information, of the flow of work, the various steps, designing new processes using the knowledge available, and sometimes coming with unique solutions. That is the wisdom. Still, I wanted to finish that bachelor's degree, so without trying to overdo on my skills, I got the basic skills but expanded on the knowledge of all the subjects, and then I was able to clear my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, knowing that I would never come back to the academic line, because by that time I had understood the information, knowledge, skills, and wisdom I was seeking was not designed yet in any syllabus. I knew I had to find my own syllabus. So after my graduation, I read books, because I had developed so much mathematical skills of solving problems using various formulas that were spread across 10 years of education. And because I had mastered the languages, I was able to pretty much understand any books that I laid hands on. I did not need to write down what I understood or redraw the drawings, because I had done so many of them, and I could just do everything in my mind. So if I read something, I could write the text in my mind. If I watched a drawing of something, I could draw it in my mind. Even I studied finances, accounts, statistics pretty much on my own, just brushing through the books. I did all the calculations, the diagrams, the system flow in my head, because I had done it manually for so many times in my school days, colleges, and uni days. This was the fruit of all my hard work of education without getting high marks or any scholarships. I relied a lot on physical books. I read about 1,000 of them on not only science, but leadership, management, communication, decision making, strategy, everything that was non-science. Amazingly, my science brain enabled me to categorize, analyze, structure the information that I'd gotten from those books into frameworks that I built each on top of the other to make a wonderful monument, of which the books you are reading now. I read so much that I had to write, and I wrote over 300 articles in the various national newspapers over a period of 5 years. The writing increased both my knowledge, and it increased also my wisdom to assimilate various ideas into coherent ideas that the layman could understand, because I was writing for national newspapers. Since the last 10 years, I moved to audiobooks from physical books. Until then, I was not enthusiastic about audiobooks, because it seemed unnatural. But most likely it was because my brain didn't have the skills enough to interpret the information from the books into knowledge fast enough at the speed of a voice reading it. But after reading 1,000 books plus, I had developed the skill in my brain to quickly take information, put it into a category of having heard it before or never having heard it. Then I would quickly put it in the other category of something useful or not useful, then I would link it to an earlier information I had that I had stored. Then some of the things that I read would be categorized as new and unknown. So this is how I was reading before, but the speed was quite slow. So reading allowed me to categorize and link everything into a knowledge framework. So over the time, I realized that my skill of assimilating information had expanded thoroughly. So when I was able to read my first audiobook and understand it, I realized that time had come. This allowed me to read many more books at incredible speeds. So since the last 10 years, I've been reading about 200 books per year, that is audiobooks. The amazing thing is I understand all of them using the same four components of education. I build on the knowledge of the earlier books to understand the later books, and with my wisdom I was able to use the knowledge and information from the various books in my own writing. Because of my skills of understanding, I could turn the information that I had gotten from the books into skills in my day-to-day life. The best example I like to give is the skills I developed from The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg that I had mentioned to you earlier on, as well as the Atomic Habits, because of my skill developed of taking book knowledge into practical skills. I turned that trio of trigger, ritual, and reward into my day to day life and developed so many healthy habits. In my counseling session, I teach the students how to develop the best habits or any habits that they want, or to undo any habits that they don't want. Finally, in my self learning um, path, YouTube has always been a great source of information, skills, knowledge, and even wisdom. People may use it to watch cat videos, or the latest K-pop drama, or the South Indian movies, or even the latest news. But I use it to add more information, learn new skills, expand my knowledge, and activate my wisdom. In this way, um, in this rather long section, I describe to you my untold story of education. In no way did I try to glorify myself. So if it appeared that way, my sincere apologies must be accepted by you. My intention was just to cement this concept of the four components of education, which is an objective that I've been trying to fulfill since the beginning of this chapter.